A rainy encounter, Barron Trump's act of quiet kindness that changed everything. The rain fell relentlessly over New York City, painting the streets with shimmering reflections of neon lights and car headlights. In the back seat of a taxi, Barron Trump sat silently, his tall frame slightly hunched as he watched raindrops race down the window. The rhythmic drumming of rain against the car roof filled the air, creating a melancholic symphony that seemed to mirror the mood inside the vehicle. Um, the driver, Michael, a middle-aged man with weary eyes and a heavy heart, let out a deep sigh as they hit yet another red light. The cab's heater barely kept the chill at bay, and the faint scent of damp upholstery lingered in the air. Michael hesitated for a moment before breaking the silence. His voice, tinged with despair, spilled over with the weight of his struggles. A sick child at home, mounting bills he couldn't pay, and a family teetering on the brink of emotional collapse. Barron's eyes, usually calm and reserved, shifted from the window to the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of Michael's burdened expression. He listened intently, his usual aloofness melting away as the driver's words filled the small space with raw vulnerability. The story struck a chord in the young passenger, stirring something deep within him. As the taxi moved through the rain-soaked streets, the city's chaos seemed to fade into the background. For Barron, this wasn't just another cab ride. It was the beginning of an encounter that would change both their lives forever. And we know without a doubt we're on our way to meet him. The taxi slowed as the traffic ahead thickened, and Michael's voice cracked, revealing even more of his frustration. Barron, who had been quiet up until this point, couldn't ignore the growing sense of helplessness in the man's words. It wasn't just a story of financial struggle. It was a story of a father desperately trying to hold his family together, facing a series of challenges he couldn't overcome on his own. The heavy rain outside seemed to echo the weight of Michael's despair. Barron's gaze softened, his sharp features momentarily revealing a vulnerability rarely seen. He looked at the driver, whose shoulders were hunched with the weight of his burdens, and something within him stirred. Despite the comforts he was born into, Barron understood the pain of feeling powerless in the face of life's unpredictability. Without warning, Barron asked quietly, "How can I help?" Michael paused, visibly startled by the question. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond. In his mind, a teenager from a wealthy family had no business offering help to a struggling taxi driver. But as he looked into Barron's calm eyes, something about the sincerity in his tone made Michael believe that this wasn't just a token gesture. He took a breath, then began listing his overwhelming troubles: his wife's escalating medical bills, the past due rent that threatened to evict his family, the endless cycle of debt, and the guilt that consumed him every night. Um, Barron's expression remained steady, but there was a subtle shift in his posture. He could see that Michael wasn't just looking for charity. He was looking for a way out of the crushing cycle of despair. Barron, despite being young, understood that sometimes people needed more than just money, though. They needed someone who would believe in them, um, even when they had lost belief in themselves. In that moment, Barron made a decision that would change both of their lives. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. Handing it to Michael, he said, "Call me tomorrow. We'll figure something out." Michael's hand trembled as he took the card, his breath catching in his throat. Tears welled in his eyes, but he fought to keep them in check. He had never expected someone like Barron Trump to offer him such kindness, especially without expecting anything in return. As the taxi resumed its journey, Michael's mind raced. Could it really be true? Could someone with Barron's privilege genuinely want to help him? And what did it mean for his future? For the first time in what felt like forever, Michael allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. The rain continued to pour, but the weight in his chest lightened, just a little. Um, um, maybe we should all just meet in the parking lot. My mom should be looking for a ride back here. Maybe she can help me. The following morning, Michael stood nervously outside the grand entrance of the Waldorf Hotel, gripping the card Barron had given him the night before. His clothes were damp from the drizzle that had lingered in the air, and his mind was filled with doubt. Was this real? He had been through too much hardship to believe in something that seemed too good to be true. Could a teenager from a billionaire family truly care about someone like him? A struggling taxi driver barely making ends meet. His hands shook as he approached the hotel's elegant entrance, the large ornate doors opening to a lobby that felt more like a palace than a hotel. He paused, scanning the grand interior, before finally taking a deep breath and stepping forward. Inside, Barron was waiting. His demeanor was calm, but there was an unmistakable warmth in his smile as he stood to greet Michael. "You came," Barron said, his voice steady, a hint of pride in his words. Michael nodded, still overwhelmed, and the words of thanks he had prepared earlier seemed to vanish from his mind. Instead, he found himself recounting his struggles, speaking with a rawness that surprised even him. He spoke of his wife, Lisa, who was fighting a battle with cancer, the Madison medical bills that threatened to bury them, and the unrelenting weight of not being able to provide for his children. Barron listened without interruption, his eyes fixed on Michael, reflecting concern and compassion. He didn't offer any empty reassurances. He simply listened, absorbing every word. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. Rather, it was a quiet moment of understanding of two people, one privileged and the other not, connecting on a human level. Finally, Barron leaned forward, breaking the silence. "Here's what we'll do," he said, his voice steady and sincere, with a clear purpose behind it. "I'll cover your wife's medical bills, and I'll help pay off your debts. We'll start fresh." Michael's heart skipped a beat. He had braced himself for an uncomfortable conversation, but not for something like this. His mouth went dry and he struggled to find words. Why would Barron do this for him? Why would someone so young, someone with everything in life, reach out to someone like him? But Barron wasn't finished. "This isn't just about money, Michael," he continued. "It's about rebuilding. You need to believe in yourself again. You have the strength to get through this. You have the power to rise above your circumstances." Anyways, that's very Pewpack. We'll get to him eventually. Um, Michael felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. It wasn't just the financial help that was overwhelming. It was the belief that someone had in him, someone who didn't owe him anything, someone who didn't have to care. For the first time in a long while, Michael felt something inside him stir. It wasn't just hope. It was belief. The meeting wasn't just an exchange of offers. It was the beginning of Michael's transformation. Barron's quiet conviction planted a seed of confidence in him, and Michael knew that this act of kindness wasn't something he could easily forget. Barron had not only offered him a second chance, but had shown him that kindness and empathy could bridge the gap between the worlds. Oof. I think it's up to us. As the conversation drew to a close, Barron's words rang in Michael's ears, still echoing with the promise of a new start. "I believe in you, Michael, but you have to believe in yourself too." "Are my men, are my men," Michael murmured. In all honesty, it was true, his only hope. Michael stood there for a moment, stunned by the kindness he had just experienced. The weight of his burdens hadn't disappeared, but for the first time in years, he felt like he might just have the strength to face them. When the bell rings twice, sharply he exclaimed, "Louder! Let this person come. Come with me." I'm sorry, I'm flooding." The days that followed felt like a blur for Michael. He could hardly believe the generosity that had been shown to him. But as the weight of Barron's words began to sink in, a sense of purpose slowly started to take root. The medical bills were taken care of, the crushing debt was cleared, and a sense of relief washed over his family. But it was the opportunity Barron had given him that truly began to change everything. Barron's commitment to helping didn't stop at the financial relief. He wasn't just offering a lifeline, he was offering a path forward. A week after their meeting, Barron arranged for Michael to meet with a team of professionals, financial advisors, and business consultants to help him transform his life in a way that went beyond survival. This wasn't a handout, it was an opportunity for Michael to rebuild. Barron believed in him, and now it was time for Michael to believe in himself. The first meeting was intimidating. Michael had never dealt with financial advisors or business consultants before. The language was foreign, and the tasks ahead seemed daunting. But Barron had given him a framework to understand it all. This was his chance to rebuild, not just his finances, but his life. Looking back, I realized, no one around me seemed to know what to do. As the days went by, Michael threw himself into the process. He began to draft a business plan, researching the logistics of starting a small taxi service, a dream he had held onto for years but never had the means to pursue. But the journey wasn't easy. Permits were delayed, repairs on his vehicle were costly, and the first few hires didn't work out. The frustration and self-doubt crept back in. There were moments when he considered giving up, moments when he felt overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it all. But then he remembered Barron's words, "I believe in you." And so, Michael pressed on, determined to make this work for his family and for himself. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of paperwork and frustration, Michael found himself at a low point. His teenage son, Danny, walked into the room with an unexpected offer. "Dad, I got a part-time job. I can help with the bills," he said, quietly, holding up a small paycheck. "Oh, shit. What did I just sign?" And tears welled up in Michael's eyes as he looked at his son. "You shouldn't have to worry about this," he whispered, feeling a lump form in his throat. But Danny just shrugged, a small smile on his face. "I learned from you, you never give up," Danny said simply. That was the turning point for Michael. He realized that the strength he had given his family all these years had passed down to his children. They had watched him fight, and now they were learning to fight their own battles. With a renewed sense of purpose, Michael pressed forward, undeterred by the setbacks. Slowly but surely, the business began to take shape. Word spread about Michael's taxi service, about how he treated his drivers with dignity and fairness, something that was rare in the industry. Customers began to appreciate the personal touch and reliability his service provided. Michael had managed to build something that wasn't just about financial success, it was about restoring his sense of dignity, both for himself and his drivers. Barron, who had quietly kept tabs on Michael's progress, returned for a visit. Michael stood proudly, knowing how much he had accomplished, but also knowing he had a long way to go. "You're proving what I already knew," Barron said with a smile. "Hard work and determination can change lives." And indeed, Michael's business wasn't just providing for his family, it was becoming a symbol of resilience. It was proof that even in the face of adversity, it was possible to rebuild and thrive. Yet Michael knew the true test wasn't in his business success. It was in how he could pass on the lesson he had learned. Barron's kindness hadn't just changed his financial situation, it had changed his outlook on life, on hope, and on second chances. Now, Michael felt compelled to do the same for others. His journey had taught him that even in the darkest of times, it was possible to change the course of one's life. Uh, this is a gem I've had in so many times, and he wanted to share that possibility with others. The transformation wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming hope, about showing up for his family, about never giving up. It was about believing in the power of kindness and hard work to change the world, one step at a time. As the weeks passed, Michael's life continued to evolve, and so did his sense of purpose. His taxi business had now become a thriving success, and his family had settled into their new home, a symbol of a future he once thought was unattainable. But the real transformation had been within Michael himself. He had come to understand that the greatest gift wasn't just the financial assistance Barron had provided, it was the opportunity to build something meaningful, to reconnect with his sense of self-worth, and to pass on the lesson of compassion to others. Inspired by the kindness Barron had shown him, Michael decided to take his experience and turn it into something greater. He launched an initiative, Wheels of Change, aimed at offering jobs, training, and transportation to individuals facing financial difficulties. The program provided more than just employment. It gave people a chance to rebuild their lives with dignity and hope, just as he had done. The initiative gained momentum quickly, gaining recognition from local news outlets. Michael's story became a beacon of hope for many who had been struggling, showing that even in the hardest of times, there was a way out if one had the courage to pursue it. His son, Danny, who had learned from his father's resilience, organized a fundraiser at school to support the cause, bringing together his classmates and teachers to make a real difference in their community. As the ripple effect of Barron's kindness continued to spread, it caught the attention of people beyond Michael's immediate circle. One evening, Michael received a call from Barron. There was a gala event being planned in New York City, and Barron wanted Michael to attend. It would be a night to celebrate the progress of Wheels of Change and raise awareness for the program's expansion. At the gala, Barron took the stage to speak about the impact of compassion and kindness. He shared Michael's journey, telling the audience how one simple act of kindness could change the course of someone's life. Michael didn't just accept help, Barron said, his voice steady. He used that help to change his life, and now he's changing the lives of others. Barron's words resonated deeply with everyone in the room. The audience applauded as Michael, along with his family, stood by Barron's side. It was a full-circle moment, a moment that proved just how far one act of kindness could go. As the night drew to a close, Barron made an announcement that left Michael speechless. Wheels of Change was going to expand nationwide. Barron had partnered with a network of philanthropists and investors to help fund the initiative's growth, offering support to thousands of struggling families across the country. The program would offer not just jobs, but a chance at a better future, just as Michael had been given. Michael stood on stage, his eyes filled with gratitude and awe. He had never imagined that one chance encounter on a rainy evening could lead to such a profound transformation, not just in his life, but in the lives of so many others. While making dinner, "I don't know how to thank you," Michael said to Barron, his voice thick with emotion. "This all started with you." Barron smiled warmly, his gaze steady. "No, Michael, it started with your courage to believe in yourself, and that's something you can never repay." As Michael looked out at the crowd, his heart full of emotion, he realized that the true power of Barron's kindness wasn't in the money or the resources. It was in the belief in others, in showing people that they had the power to create their own future, no matter how impossible it seemed. And I watched him go, and I watched him walk. The gala marked a turning point, not just for Michael and his family, but for countless others whose lives would be touched by Wheels of Change. It was proof that one small act of kindness could spark a chain reaction, spreading hope, opportunity, and transformation to communities across the nation. As the evening came to a close, Michael held his family close, grateful for the journey they had been on and for the road ahead. He had learned the most important lesson of all. No matter how difficult the circumstances, a second chance could always lead to a brighter future.